So it's Saturday 24th of April 2020 and this is the Irish Unity Podcast and you're very, very welcome back. Now folks, the Irish travelling community are without a doubt the most hard pressed, discriminated against section of our society. There are many myths, there are many falsehoods about them, there are many controversies about the Irish traveller community. We want to find a way to get some insight into the perspective of the Irish traveller, and I'm very, very happy to have with us tonight a Republican Socialist activist, IRSP member, but more than that, a community activist, a committed community activist within the Irish traveller community, James Ward. How you doing, James?
Not too bad, how's things?
Oh, great, man. It's great having you on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all, man. I'd say before we get into the politics, James, and we will, because it's a Republican show, and we'll get into all the recriminations. I'm just going to be totally nosy, right? I'm just going to be totally nosy and curious, because there's something I've always wanted to know. The historical origins of the Irish traveller community. Now, we were told at school, we were given a million different accounts of the origins of the travellers. You know, we were told it was...
Did they ever tell you there's a quote that we use sometimes? It's saying that the travellers are more Irish than the Irish themselves, that we had no other option than to be drove to the road. And that's basically where then the traveller originated from. And then when we took up then, say, the likes of the term tinker, a tinsmith, when we be...
Well, how far are you talking back here?
Or pans.
We were told, sorry for cutting across you, James, but we were told, like, one of the versions we were told was that it went back to the flight of the Earls. That it went back to when the old aristocracy left, that they left behind their most powerful political, I suppose, PROs of the time, which was the bards. And that the bards became isolated from mainstream society because the Earls, the chieftains, and the Taoiseach had left.
Well, how could I put it in an easier perspective for people to understand? When we took to the road and started forming in clans like the Ward clan, etc., I can't really give you the full extent of the history in just one phone call because it's such a diverse and complex history.
Yeah.
But I will try to answer. When we took to the roads, there was no other option.
Yeah.
And then we started working on farms and horse dealerships and everything else. But like, I can give you the history of it. But look, it's okay looking back on our history to understand. And it is a dying history where we have our own language and culture, as you know.
Yeah.
But I prefer looking to the future to see where we can go from here.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing for the travelling community is education. I think education is extremely important. I personally left school at a young age, which was a norm, especially when you're being a young traveller man. My father being a market trader, so I took to the road with him that market across Ireland. So that was basically, we always say it's an education without a graduation kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's what I think is the main stoppage for travellers, and I think things are starting to change, but not as rapidly as it should.
So you're a working man while you're still a boy.
Well, that's it in one way of putting it. Yeah. Like, I remember I'd be out down the country, we call it. I'd be out down the country. Yeah. With my father, he used to wholesale tools. Yeah. And my younger brother would be out with my mother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we'd be at a market, so that was the kind of that was basically our education. We were just educated that way, and that was the norm for us until eventually I was sick of asking my friends how to spell this and how to spell that, and I tried to learn how to read and write. And
obviously, James, like, this brings us round to the obvious discrimination against the traveller community. There's just been a subconscious.
It's ridiculous. It's a constant. Even with me, and I try my best within the community, and I still get the term knacker on. It's like it's no matter what you do. This is the feeling from within inside. Yeah. It feels like no matter what you do, society is still going to push you out. Yeah. Like, looking at the travelling community, we've only been recently recognised as an ethnic minority in only recent years. Yeah. So when you exile basically a whole community, you're alienated. That feels alienated from society. If I'm not 100% sure on the quote, but I think that Charlie Haughey, if I can remember right, used the quote years ago, the last solution to the itinerant problem.
That's right.
when he meant of settling the tinker problem. Those kind of words were used in Nazi Germany, for God's sake.
That's right.
Wipe out a whole culture and race is just something that the scars is still there amongst my community, and it is very hurtful at times. I still get it like everyone does.
Yeah.
But there's a small minority in the travelling community that unfortunately do go out and cause social behaviour, that are behind break-ins, that are behind crime, etc.
Yeah.
But that's no reason to come out and paint the whole community with it.
Yeah, I have a memory, right? I grew up in between sort of South Armagh and Uri, depending on which parent I was talking to that week, you know. And I remember behind my mother's home in Uri, there was what's now St Christopher's Park. It was then called the Middlebank, right? And looking back, where the travellers lived in Uri, it was hidden from view, right? They built a big wall, a big wooden wall, so that people couldn't even see them, right? But I could see them.
Outside of Galway City.
Yeah.
The Cara Brown, it is based right beside a dump.
Yeah.
Well, you're thrown beside a dump like an animal and treated like an animal, you're going to react.
Yeah.
Well, some try to rise above it, but unfortunately some just snap.
Well, what is James?
I know what you mean when you say they were just exiled and blocked away and sheltered the problem away from society instead of tackling and dealing with the problem.
And but that was only the start of it. That was only the start of it, James. Because I remember, and as a young fella, how marginalised that community was, and I'm probably ashamed to say that, you know, I shared in the prejudices, because this is what and you weren't even taught the prejudices. It was just rank. It was just
the norm.
Yeah, it was the norm. You know,
it was the norm.
They weren't.
I know from going up in school and in the community, it was just the norm. The norm for my friends. Do you know what I mean?
You weren't getting into the pub.
It was just what
you weren't getting into the shops. You weren't getting into discos.
I walked to a pub with you and you give your ID and I give my ID.
Yeah.
I think, mate, because I told them either too drunk or else the manager, right, okay, pal. I went up one night up here in Dundalk where I am for a night out. I was going socialising with a mate.
Yeah.
And walked into the pub and I ordered a pint and I was refused blatantly. No explanation.
Yeah.
No nothing, just no, you've been refused. That's it. It's hurtful and annoying, but like I said, it's just water off a duck's back at this age.
Yeah.
And especially when you're used to it for so long.
But there's no way that
it's still hurtful, and there's only going to be one way to try to solve this issue, is to break down culture barriers, stop the fear within the settled community of the travelling community, and vice versa with the travelling community of the fear of the settled community.
Yeah. And is there a fear there?
The main fear,
James.
The fear of the unknown.
What is the fear that the travelling community would have of the settled community? You know, fair enough, they've been persecuted by them, but aside that,
that would be what it is. You wouldn't be good enough for it. It's that kind of that ideology, that way of thinking. Oh, we're not good enough no matter what we do. Yeah. We're still only no tinker or knacker to them. Yeah. It's that's the blatant and honest as it can get, like.
I get you.
And it's just, and it's the fear. Like, my partner is from the settled community. Yeah. And that is, I think, me being a traveller or her being from the settled community, doesn't make a difference. Do you know what I mean? It's just, but it's the people's thought of the unknown, I think, is the worst. Yeah. So that's where you have the travellers. Oh, we stick with ourselves. We stay with our own. We stay amongst our own. Do you know what I mean? That's just like, look at traveller sites all over the country. Travellers are preferred to be in a halting site than some houses. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's because you're around people, basically your own, your people you know, people that won't look down on your people.
People you can trust.
Do you know what I mean? No, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that all society will, because that would be looking at it as a prejudiced way. But for, it's just the fear of the unknown is really basically what it boils down to. How would you put it? Divide and conquer is exactly what it was down to. Tell
me this, James. Politics within the travelling community, right? Ideology, republicanism, socialism. Is there a? I mean, I always learned that the travelling community had a sympathy for Irish republicanism. Would that be right?
The traveller community has always sympathised with the Republican movement. My father especially educated me is the best way he did. My father was a great Republican sympathiser and taught me everything I knew, so I know from example that yes, travellers, what can you say, done what they could for the Republican movement, as if everyone did. Yeah. Every traveller or everyone tried to do their bit.
I do remember, I remember about 20 years ago, and when we were collecting funds for Republican prisoners up in McGabry, and it was at a time, James, where the Republican prisoners in McGabry we're talking about anti-Good Friday Agreement prisoners, okay?
Yeah.
And it was at a time where not all Republican society even was getting behind the prisoners, right? To put it mildly. I'll be honest, like there was actually clampdowns to prevent funds being raised for the McGabry and Portlaoise prisoners. And so we were in West Belfast collecting at the bottom of the White Rock Road for Republican prisoners, and there was a community worker out, now I won't name him, but there was a community worker within the travelling community, a travelling man, a member of the travelling community, well known, and he drove to the bottom of the White Rock Road and he handed us £200, which was just phenomenal, right? A gesture. And we were just blown away by this gesture, you know. And he just made the point that you were saying. He says, we'll do whatever we can. Right? There was something inherent in the man that, no, he wasn't looking at it, he wasn't getting anything out of this, like, you know, he wasn't.
I can go back to that, what I said earlier on when I said the Irish are more Irish than the Irish themselves. That's how or the travellers are more Irish than the Irish themselves. Yeah. So when it comes to republicanism, supporting republicanism, you're always going to have support from the travelling community, because that's how they always looked at themselves, as Celtic clans, Celtic warriors. Yeah. That's where you can get the pride and the clannish from, so on and so forth.
What way? How clannish are you? You brought up the term clannish, so I'll push you on it. Like, when you say clan, like, do the travelling community, do they recognise themselves in like a clan structure in different parts of the countries? Would you have like certain families aligned to each other, or is that just me talking nonsense?
Well, you would have the wider base traveller community that would look at each other as all the one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then you would have the different clans within that kingdom, kinda, should we say.
Yeah.
You have your different clans, you have the wards, you have so on and so forth. And then if we want to bring up the harsh truth, unfortunately, like what clans do, there does be battles, and that's where you come across the violence within the travelling community. Yeah. As if you want to address the travelling community, we're going to have to address the issue of the violence and feuds within that, which people use to use it as fuel for the fire.
Well, what do you have to say about that, James? You know, because we weren't not going to bring it up. You know, it's obviously
Well, it's a matter that I raised because I thought it needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
we can look at feuds from many aspects.
Yeah, from
thousands of years back, battles on battlefields, it was just escalated.
Yeah,
and modernised throughout the years, and it's all due to pride and family name and egos.
Yeah.
What happened throughout the years, and it used to be, if there was an argument, that the best man from one clan would fight the best man from the other clan in a bare knuckle boxing bout. Win, lose or draw, shake hands, and you'd probably head to the pub and have a few beers after.
Yeah.
But coming from then up to the current situation now, I think when money started getting involved and that sort of thing just came into it, that's when just the greed and the bitterness and just arose from it. Like with any feud escalates over money. That's when people start throwing money on, mad kind of money on the fights, and of course things are going to kick off. It's all that, do you know what I mean? It's just.
So you're saying, is it like gambling? Gambling on the back of it, like.
That's it, like. Yeah. It's like gambling. It's gambling, and then like you walk into bookies and lose a couple of quid on the horse. You come out your own bad form. You think the head of your clan or the best man of your clan. You throw money on his back, and he lost. You see, I noticed this. Like,
I noticed. Sorry for cutting across you, James, but I noticed. I wanted to bring it up. Because some of you see the call out stuff and all, and some of it has the air of pantomime. I don't want to annoy, especially the boys. Do you know what I mean?
Neither, to be honest, I think it's just a stupid and silly thing to do to get up and just act like a baboon up on a video. Why? What's the point?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't see how that'll just escalate things.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Do you know what I mean? Where if they stop with the videos and stop calling each other out, then maybe you could get someone to intervene from a neutral family and could resolve the issue.
Fair play,
before it escalated into something something a lot worse. Yeah. Which has happened throughout.
That's right.
All different feuds throughout the years.
Yeah. Well, listen, but let's not forget, James. It's far from a phenomenon that only exists within the traveller community. You know,
it happens from all cultures and all walks of life. It's
absolutely,
It's.
I think the travellers are probably just a bit more operatic in it. Like, you know, they bring a bit more drama to it.
Sometimes, we keep the tradition of the Celtic ways.
But I didn't want to say you were better at it, but you know, you are better at the theatrics. Put it like that. You know what I mean?
Don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning the acts of it, but it's, I think if they stopped half that call out online, then maybe a mediator could come in and resolve the issue before unfortunately, we saw countless of times people and families and
very recently too,
getting hurt for no reason.
We'll go into some positives here, because there's a lot of positive things in the traveller community I want to talk about, and I want to talk about music. I want to talk about music within the travelling community, right? I was doing a wee bit of research last night. An immense songwriting, a depth of songwriting skills within the traveller community. There's been some fantastic artists coming out. I was listening to the Furies last night.
Like Tyson Fury.
Oh, man.
From my home county of Galway.
Yeah. Have you had the pleasure of meeting Finbar? Yeah.
No, I haven't had the pleasure yet.
I bumped into him.
After this, I'll going back to the term I used again. The travellers are very clannish. If they stick behind something and support something, they will give it their all.
Yeah.
I name one famous boxer, Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
After his last bout, he donated his whole winnings to the homeless.
Yeah.
To various homeless charities and other charities, I think, across England. As you know, I'm a homeless activist.
Yeah.
So I can understand the demand and the pressure that would have took off those charities.
Yeah.
So that's just one example I can give of good that the travellers have done.
Brilliant.
We've filled food banks up and down the country with donations.
Yeah.
As you said, for the ex-prisoners that time. We've always known to be generous. We've always known to do our bit and pull our weight. Yes, there is bad in our communities. We understand that and accept that, but there's bad in everyone's community. And I seen the documentary the other day about Channel 4. Yeah. And I thought the statistics of it, they used the term that there was a quarter basically of the travelling community was bad and 3/4 were good. So why would you tarnish a whole community on the bad that one section does? Yeah. If the numbers are that, maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know, I didn't look into it. But why tarnish and try to ruin the good that others do by a handful of cunts, basically?
Well, that you've just got yourself knocked off YouTube there. I might have to edit that bit. But no, I mean, you're right. I mean, where I live in West Belfast, right, we have a traveller family close. Do they annoy us sometimes with their music and all? Yeah. Do the young people annoy us sometimes? Yeah. But nothing like this. Nothing like the settled lads, right? Easily 95% of annoyances from the settled youths. You know what I mean? And traveller youths too are allowed to be youths, I've no doubt that this.
No matter traveller or settled, there's youths are youths, and just they weren't like ourselves when we were youth. Sure.
Oh,
there was no control unless we got the clip in the air, in all fairness.
Yeah.
So that's just down to youths. That's not down to being traveller or being settled or being black or Muslim, or it's just down to you being young and wild, I suppose, isn't it?
James, where is the traveller community at the minute with their fight for civil rights? Yeah?
We're in a changeover, shall I say, into modernising our culture more, I think, but we're doing it at a slow rate because obviously we don't want to lose our culture.
Yeah.
but we want to modernise, and I see an increase in travellers finishing off third year education, which is brilliant. I have a cousin of mine that's been elected onto the governing body of NUIG Galway.
Yeah.
I've doctors now that are traveller wards.
Yeah.
So I can see that we are making big leaps forward, but we're also putting a lot of small steps before that leap, if that makes much sense.
Yeah, it does, yeah. Well, I can imagine it's such an uphill battle.
It's going to be a long road, like every road is. Yeah. But it's a road that needs to be taken. It's a necessary journey, and just that's the only way forward. I think anyway. So it's looking good. It's looking good. The future's looking bright.
Fair play, man. And Republican socialism. How you mentioned growing up on the road and the problems you had trying to get a formal education. What drew you to Republican socialism, James?
My father.
Yeah.
My father was a Republican, and when you were stuck in a van on the road travelling up and down the 32 counties of this island listening to rebel music and being quizzed on this and quizzed on that, I learned from a young age, and when he passed, unfortunately, I just took up from where he left off. Yeah. So that's how I became a Republican socialist activist. That's just as simple as it is.
You were down speaking.
Pardon?
You were down speaking at the human rights rally in Galway. I think it was January. Was it? What was going on there, James? That's when I first heard about you, your activism. You know, what was that? What was that occasion?
That occasion was led by the March for Justice. We hosted it down in Galway, and along with other groups that attended, we raised the issue of the Craigavon too, the homelessness. Suicide, whatever needed, as you know yourself, human rights issues that affected our city, like we do across the country. And I wouldn't be great at speaking, I wouldn't be the best person to speak, but I got up and I know what the homeless problem is, because I've been out in the street. I've been homeless in soup kitchens giving out dinners at Christmas morning. I know what the situation is, so I just spoke from the heart, and that was how I deal with that. That's how I follow things.
Good man. What about this, and obviously we're still in the middle of this COVID pandemic, James, how's the travelling community coping with that there? Like?
To be honest, they've pulled a lot closer together.
Yeah.
Because now you have them, the whole lot of disinfecting all the halting sites together. They're using their jet washers to wash down everything. They're taking the procedures, which is good, but that's okay for the individuals to do that.
Yeah.
But if you live in a halting site that is unfortunately infested with rats, or unfortunately, as I mentioned a while ago, if you live beside the dump, you're just prone to it. It's going to get there, like, isn't it, in fairness?
Yeah.
So it's a bit worrying at this present moment, like it is for everyone.
Yeah.
But when you're such a tight-knitted community and you're living in halting sites across the country and whatnot, it's a worrying time for everyone, I suppose.
Yeah, it is, man. Well, listen, James, we'll send our very best wishes to all of the travelling community, and I want to thank you very much for coming on, buddy. You stay safe.
Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Good man. Good night and God bless.